Welcome to a brand new episode of the 5 Heart Podcast, brought to you by CornNation.com, part of the SB Nation Podcast Network. I'm your host, Greg Mahochko, joined as always by our founder and fearless leader, John Dam Johnston. Hello, John.
Hi, Greg.
And
how are you doing?
Also, I'm doing great. Also with us, as always, let's face it, this is the new tripod. We love Haas. And if he ever comes back on a full-time basis, we'll have the quad pod. Not sure that's a thing. Copyright, trademark, Greg Mahochko, 5 Heart Podcast. But anyway, also with us, as always, is the great, beloved by millions, Todd Wolverton. Hi, Todd.
Hi, Greg. I think that would be a chair. If there were 4, I think it would be a chair.
Yeah, but the quad pod, I think, sounds better.
I do not disagree with that. Quad pod, that might be the moneymaker we're looking for.
All right, so all we need is for Haas to finish up school and come back to the real moneymaker, which is the podcast. And then we can start making shirts, bumper stickers, other paraphernalia that say quad pod. Hashtag quad pod. It's a thing. Let's make it.
Somebody probably already owns rights and it's a porn site or something.
I didn't think about that because that's not the first place that my mind goes, Todd. But here's the thing. We've got to stay on task this week. So it's only Husker athletics, no funny business and no side tangents, all right?
Okay.
So let's get to it. We are several days removed now from Nebraska's loss at home against Purdue, 28-23. Nebraska managed to do it again. They scored late and ended up losing by 1 score.
Does that make you feel any better?
Nope. It's been 23 games now in the Scott Frost era that have been decided by 1 score, 8 points or less. And friend of the show, Josh, reached out to me after the game on Saturday and said, how far back do you have to go to find that many 1-score games for Nebraska? So I looked, and you have to go all the way back to the final year of Bo Pelini's tenure at Nebraska. So just 4 years. So 4 years with, 3 games left. And then the 4 seasons prior, including bowl games, there was a 1-score loss to USC in there. Yeah. So you have to go back that far to get to 23 games that are decided by 1 score or less. Now, the difference is that instead of being, 5-18 in the Scott Frost era, Nebraska in the 23 games that were decided by 1 score or less in previously were 10-13, which is still a losing record, but it's 5 above where they'd be. And think about, maybe is the narrative different if Scott Frost, this sounds so sad. This is where we are. If Scott Frost has 5 more wins in the last almost 4 seasons, I guess it depends on where some of those wins end up. If you're looking at this year, you turn, the Oklahoma loss into a win. You turn the Michigan and Michigan State losses into wins. Now we're talking, those are I think needle movers. But otherwise, 5 wins over 3.5 seasons, it doesn't mean a whole lot.
It would nice for Scott to have a signature win, just one signature win. One win we could go, hey, remember that one time but you can't.
Bo Pelini had that 1 win.
Mike Riley had that 1 win.
1 score, Scott does not.
I remember now Bo Pelini had help. I think oddly enough, maybe there's something in the air, but it was against Ohio State at home. It was, Rex Burkhead showed out. It was the game that I think at that time, if not still, was the largest deficit ever erased by a Nebraska Husker football team. And we had the benefit of Joe Bauserman throwing footballs all over and out of Memorial Stadium. So there were a lot of factors at play, but it does give you hope heading into this weekend, doesn't it?
No.
John, I'm trying to get you fired up. You're a little melancholy.
You know, that comeback game against Ohio State was the fuck thread. That was the game thread in which I told everybody they couldn't swear in game threads through the season because people complained to me about Corn Nation wasn't a family site. And I told everybody to not do any swearing. And we were down. So what was it? 27-3. And I posted this thing that said, fucking football team can't fucking tackle, can't fucking block, can't fuck. And 2 plays after I posted that, I think Levante David, who was it? Hit Braxton Miller and he fumbled. Was it Levante David? I think it was.
I have some standout moments in that game. Rex Burkhead's, touchdown, like Superman jumping, to get to the pylon. The one that really sticks out to me is a Stanley Jean-Baptiste interception because famously he had just moved to the defensive side of the ball that week or maybe, earlier in the season. So he didn't have a ton of reps on defense, but he came through in a big way. But yeah, see, that's the thing about Levante David is I know he was a stud here. And he's, I've said it for years, he's one of my favorite Huskers. But I can never quite place, he would have been here just after Ndamukong Suh. They didn't play together on defense because
he and Yoshi arrived at 2010 from Fort Scott.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much, John.
You're welcome, Greg.
John, I'm going to do something to get you fired up tonight.
It's okay.
It's not.
Yeah. This is the peaceful, man. I just feel peace in my heart. And I hope we pull it out and beat the Buckeyes, but things are tough right now.
So is this apathy or complacency or is
I was listening intently to your one score thing and I was gleaning data from it.
Okay.
This is what I do when I listen intently to somebody instead of interrupting them all the time.
I don't mind you interrupting me. Well, I was about to go off on a tangent. I'm not going to do that. But at least when you interrupt me, it's entertaining. And I would much rather have, and I think the listeners and viewers on YouTube would much rather have a John Johnston rant than anything that I say. So.
Oh my God, it gets exhausting though.
I imagine.
Every once in a while, you just got to step back and go, wow, what do I have to be thankful for here?
Mm-hmm. That's fair. But
it is the season for thanks.
It is.
Look at Todd bringing it home. I feel like, Todd, will you be our default to Ted Lasso?
He already is.
If only I could be a measure of the man Ted Lasso. That I think I will. I think that's going to be like my life goal is to become as much like Ted Lasso as humanly possible.
And John, will you be our Roy Kent?
I still have to watch the rest of that, damn it.
That's fine.
I think you can handle Roy Kent.
All you got to do is swear a lot and be the smartest person in the room.
I'm only on the 4th episode of the first season.
You're missing out. Oh, I apologize. That's a tangent. I didn't mean to get off on a tangent.
Just stop. This last month has been work all day on stuff and work on firewalls at night, and it's really been frustrating.
You get paid overtime?
Well, I get paid. It's not really overtime.
Okay.
It's just a billable rate.
Gotcha.
So, but after a while, what is money, Greg? What is that? But what makes the world go round? The crushing capitalism, destroying the planet. And of course, we've lifted everybody out of poverty with capitalism. Todd would disagree because he's a socialist commie bastard. But, really, how much more money do any of us really need?
Well,
Are
I
you-
think
are you-
Nebraska
are
is
you-
going to start worrying about it because they place such a heck of an emphasis on selling out that stadium. And we'll see what happens. They also
What
have
happens?
to have $150 million here in the next few years to pay off the new facility. So you slimy capitalist pigs need to figure out some way to make sure that Nebraska's premier athletic program is still bringing money into the coffers.
I think we can do that with bake sales. Bake sales, brownies,
Cinnamon rolls and
you know.
chili.
No,
Every-
but brownies with the funny stuff in them, and everybody's handing out the cash.
I thought you were talking about actual like fundraisers, and you said bake sales. I'm like, all right, car washes. What else can we do to raise some funds?
We
here?
can mobilize every church in the state of Nebraska to have a chili supper with cinnamon rolls on the same day to benefit Nebraska football.
This is the problem: is everybody says we're going back to the '90s when really we need to go back to the '60s. Every one of those church bake sales has to have Jell-O salads.
With vegetables in them, shredded vegetables.
God, Todd, why do you have to say things that are just ridiculous? Why?
People ate that stuff, Greg. Come on.
So I'm used to like Jell-O molds.
Wham! We're off on a tangent.
Got to bring it back. Bring it back, Greg. Bring it back.
Okay. Well, I want to talk about the sellout streak. So let's do that, and then I want to talk some more about that loss against Purdue because it was atrocious. It shouldn't have never happened. And that's Purdue's not a good team, and sorry, I don't think Travis Miller's listening this week. But
I got a lot of shit for that.
For what?
For saying that Purdue is for being on YouTube and saying repeatedly that the Big Ten West is not full of good teams. There's a lot of people are kind of a little bit angry with me about that. Especially
they're not
Purdue
realists.
People. No, they're not. They're not.
But let's talk about Purdue, and then I want to come back to the sellout streak. I want to try to do things in somewhat of a. So, I feel like Purdue was a regression for Adrian Martinez. 4 touchdowns, not necessarily all of them were entirely his fault. As I think, maybe a ball was tipped once or something like that, but
I think you had a Freudian slip there, Greg. You said 4 touchdowns. I think you were.
I wishful thinking. I'm sorry. 4 interceptions. Someday we'll talk about a quarterback throwing 4 touchdowns. But I feel like this is not a tangent. This is a correlation. I feel like Aragorn at in Return of the King, he says, "But it is not this day." Anyway, we'll get a quarterback who can throw the ball and put it on the money with consistency. He won't have a last name of Martinez. He probably won't be from the state of California, if we're being honest. Four interceptions, a ton of missed opportunities. And I think what chaps my ass the most about the quarterback situation is that afterwards, Scott, when there was a question about if Martinez was going to sit down or something like that, and Scott very quickly shot that down and says he gives us our best opportunity to win. The quarterback who just threw 4 interceptions to Purdue is your best chance to win. Either doesn't say anything about the other quarterbacks in your quarterback room or coaching or recruiting, but there is a massive disconnect there if the guy who just threw 4 picks is your best opportunity to win.
What do you think, Todd?
I think that Adrian Martinez once again is banged up more than what we're aware of, but I also am convinced that Coach Purdue always talks about quick blink, and I just don't think that Adrian Martinez has the capacity to make the right decision out on the field. To understand, that might not even be the right word, but to know where the open receivers should be. And, I've made excuses throughout the year saying that, the first thing that Adrian Martinez had to figure out is where was the guy coming from, or the guys coming from that were going to sack him. That was his first check down. Against Purdue, that was not an issue, except for a couple of times when they had big old number 5 man-child out there on the field. There were a couple of times he made our tackles look like peewee players. But other than that, Adrian Martinez had plenty of time to get passes off. And, the beauty of being in the stadium where our seats are, I can see the whole field very, very well, almost a bird's eye view. And it was incredible how many times there were open receivers, or receivers were open early, and by the time he threw the ball, they weren't open anymore. That is frustrating. Logan Smothers, Scott Frost, I think, overthought. He said that he thought about it during the game. So why didn't he pull the trigger? People like to say he's hitching his wagon to Martinez. And an analogy I thought of riding home the other day is Scott Frost is the dad coach that fails to see his son's weaknesses. And he can't make himself pull his son from the game because he is so concerned about how bad he's going to crush his son and what that's going to do to his relationship. That's the way I see it.
It's a really good. I've never come up. I didn't think about that analogy, but I like it quite a bit, and I think it has a lot of merit. When Frost first came and, Adrian Martinez was recruited, committed, and we get it that, when Frost took the job, he had a very small recruiting period for that opening class. And he also was trying to, coach UCF to and through a bowl game. So, a lot was on his plate, but he had brought in Martinez, Andrew Bunch. Now the name escapes me. The kid who went on to Rutgers.
Noah Vedral.
Thank you. Yeah, I was gonna say when that failed, if nobody picked up the name, then I was be like, he suited up for the Nebraska ball in the Big Ten tournament for a game. I was gonna go make that reference, but he brought in a lot of people, and somehow he still stuck with the true freshman QB who didn't play a single snap in the senior year of high school. So that meant he went from junior year to the Big Ten. And that's like me, I stopped playing Little League Baseball at age like 11. And then I tried playing, in high school. And that's a big jump. I don't know if it's as big as junior year of, probably some relatively high level of high school football to the Big Ten. But it's not, it's just not a small step. It's a giant leap for all quarterback kind.
Well, my perspective is much more insidious. Because I'm honest to God starting to feel like Adrian Martinez is Scott Frost scapegoat. Because if you go out, comments on our website, we moderate our website, so we get rid of a lot of people that are just complete assholes. But if you go, I look at a lot of social media. I look at Twitter. I look at Facebook pages, and there's so many people that are like, "We'll be fine without Adrian Martinez," and you're kind of like, okay, you're blaming all of this on one fucking guy, who Scott Frost won't pull for whatever reason. And it also almost feels to me like Frost is like, yeah, fuck it, they're going to blame Adrian. Like he doesn't give a shit about the guy at all.
John, it's interesting you say that, because one of the days I was driving home this week, I was listening to the Nick Handley show, and they had a poll on there. And, basically there were 4 questions. What is your preference? Keep Scott Frost comes back next year. Adrian Martinez doesn't. Martinez comes back. Frost is gone. Both come back. Both are gone by a landslide. The people that were calling in, it was like 75 to 80% of the people, their choice was Frost comes back, Martinez is gone. Now,
what a excellent job he's done.
well, here's my thing, and we've expressed it before. There's not a player on this current roster that has given more than Adrian Martinez. There are some that has given as much, but no one's given any more.
Or there are some who've been, given quite a bit, but haven't been there for 4 years. You know what I mean?
Sure, I'll go with that. But, this kid has been a warrior, and they've carried him off on his shield more than once. And I don't think ultimately he's been treated fairly. And part of that is removing him from a game or not playing him in a game when he can't succeed, And I'm not making all kinds of excuses for Adrian Martinez. No way that kid would ever be a Heisman caliber quarterback. He's not. But the fact that in some ways Scott Frost has insulated him, and that's almost been to his detriment. Just real quick, my analogy to coach dad that can't pull his son, the other kind of coach dad is the one that is harder on his son than he is on any other player. And people feel bad about, the abuse that those kids take. Now I don't see that. That's not Scott Frost, but I think, and Ohio State's probably not the time to start Logan Smothers, but I think that Logan Smothers needs to start having series in the Ohio State game, the Wisconsin game, and the Iowa game in preparation for going forward. And if you want to put Heinrich Carberg in there for a few snaps too, do it.
Damn well he's not going to do that.
I know he's not. Okay, tell me this, guys. Why is and I haven't gotten an answer to this. Why is Adrian Martinez's jaw wired up this week?
Probably from that, what was the Northwestern or Michigan?
It was
State?
Northwestern and Michigan State.
He got hit in the face and had to go off the field for a while.
And now they're finally wiring his jaw. And how is he going to be able to communicate during the game with a wired jaw?
I'm gonna
they're
tell
gonna
a
do
story.
clapping.
I'm gonna share an anecdote that I hope doesn't fall into tangent category. But years ago, we know that I started my radio career out in the Panhandle in Nebraska, up at Chadron, and so I was the voice of the Chadron Cardinals for high school football, basketball, things like that. Just a team just a little bit down the road was the Gordon Bronx. While I was out there, they merged with Rushville to become the Gordon Rushville Mustangs. And there was a kid out there who first week of the season, I heard about it from the coach the next day. First week of the season, I think he was on kickoff return or something like that, but got tackled by the defender, hit him underneath the face mask right in the jaw with the crown of his helmet. Broke his jaw in 3 places. Jaw was wire shut. I went out there, had a conversation. He was up, that next week I visited him at the high school out there. He was as upbeat as he could be. He comes back for the playoffs and helps Gordon Rushville beat Chadron. And I've never liked the kid. No, okay, terrific kid. He went on to play at Chadron State. But yeah, he missed from the first week of the season to, the first week of the playoffs because of having a broken jaw. I don't know, if in his jaw was wired shut and he was, doing liquid diet. So I don't know how, a quarterback who has to be able to communicate is going to be able to do that. Yeah, you both, I think John or maybe Todd, I don't know, said, I mean, it's almost impossible. If anything, if Frost ever was looking at a time to be able to put him on the bench, now would be the time, right? I mean, you've got an actual excuse. It has nothing to do with performance. It has to do with the fact that his jaw is wired shut.
You know what? The good news is that if we lose to Ohio State, he'll have a different excuse this time. Well, Adrian couldn't communicate properly because his jaw was wired shut.
And if that is the excuse,
we didn't have any other quarterbacks that could play.
If that's the excuse, that if they trot Adrian out there and he gets thrown around, abused, etc., and that's the excuse that they give, well, he couldn't communicate because his jaw was wired shut. Yeah, exactly like you laid out, John. Then Trev Alberts needs to walk Scott Frost to his office, have him collect his things, and walk him out, never to return, because that is bullshit. That is an excuse. That is an intolerable excuse, because you do have other quarterbacks, even if they're not as experienced, even if you don't have as much confidence. If you're going to send a kid out there with his fucking jaw wired shut, and you're going to trot him out there to get his ass handed to him by a potential college football playoff contender, then it is no longer about wins and losses, in my opinion. And tell me if I'm right or wrong. It's about player safety. I remember the Michigan coach at the time, escapes my name.
Brady Hoke.
Thank you. I was going to say one of the big fat ones, who when the quarterback was visibly like unsteady because he'd just been concussed and he's trotting out there for another play or two before they actually pull him off. That's another situation. You got to be thinking a little bit more about a little less about wins and losses, more about player safety. If you want to get up in arms about targeting or roughing the passer or any of the on the field things that happen in a football game, but you're going to trot somebody out there when they have a jaw wired shut, when they are not 100% physically ready to go, see you later. I ain't got time for you. I don't care if you're Scott Frost or Nick Saban. Bigger things than football. I've been saying it for years.
Something that's a little curious to me is, why haven't we heard more about this? About this jaw situation. I mean, it's my understanding that it is confirmed, but why isn't this something that has been, elaborated upon in the mainstream media? I don't understand that. And, I'll say this. If it isn't confirmed, if I'm buying into, a wild goose chase, then, I apologize for spreading that rumor. But
Sean Callahan tweeted it.
Okay, so Sean Callahan's pretty.
Sean Callahan doesn't do goose chases.
Rumor and innuendo.
Yeah. So, another thing about the Purdue game, that there are a couple things that really bother me. And, for a long time, I've been the defender of coaches, and I always will remain a defender of coaches. I was a coach. Unless you've coached, unless you've put in the time, unless you've, gone through all of that, it's pretty easy to be a critic. And I understand that. But I'm also a fan, and, fans are going to be the armchair quarterbacks. And what I don't understand is, people can talk all they want to about, why isn't Xavier Betts on the field more? Why don't we see, some of these people that have some incredible gifts? Why aren't we getting them the ball, et cetera? But I ran across this in one of the articles I was reading. There were 2 times in this Purdue game when they ran a double tight end set with receiver split wide to both sides and Jacques Yount on the field as a running back. And both of the in both instances, when they played from that set, Yount just had massive yards. I can't remember how many, but big gains. And that's the only time that they used that set during the game. And it's frustrating for me then to hear a quote from Austin Allen after the game where, he's being asked questions about play calling and some of that kind of stuff. And his answer was as honest as the day is long. We still had plays on our sheet. So I used to be a huge critic of Sean Watson. And who was the damn coordinator that we had after Watson that was from KU?
Tim Beck.
Who?
Him back.
Back?
Yes. Those guys were in love with their playbooks.
Yeah.
And it just drove me absolutely nuts that it was imperative for those guys to run as many different plays and show how brilliant their offense is in every damn game. I don't understand whatever happened to the philosophy. Well, PJ Fleck has it. Make them stop what you're doing. If you can get 10 yards a pop, you keep doing the damn thing until they shut it down. And so does that mean that the only plays that we can run from a double tight set with Jacques Yant in the backfield is just that one running play? Bullshit. Scott Frost needs to understand that he has an arsenal that's effective and he has plays that are not. And why he doesn't consistently stick with things that are working is just beyond me.
I don't. This is why I don't think he has 3 games to prove that he still belongs at Nebraska. I mean, if he goes 3-9 and comes back, I don't know why anybody would even give a fuck about this football program, until we win 7 games in a row next year or something. This is exactly what drives me insane about Frost is you look at his offense and there's no cohesiveness to it. There's no plays that we run consistently that we make yardage on. I mean, when you're running 3rd and 2, what's he going to run? You know damn well what PJ Fleck's going to run. He's either going to run a slant or he's going to run like a nickel duo zone play, right? Or he's going to do that thing where he did with Cole Kramer, where he has the other quarterback come in, and it's basically going to be like a type of wildcat, except it's with a different quarterback. He has sets for that, for short yardage situations. One of those broke our back in that game. But that's the thing with Scott. That's why he and I are on first name basis. He's one score Scott. And this is why I just don't think he can come back, why he's not going to win any more games. Because there's nothing you can look at that you look at our offense and go, oh, well, that's working all the time.
No, I agree. And, then they throw in some wrinkles, some things that I personally have been begging for, like when it's 4th and inches or 4th and 1, line up under center, and then they line up under center and they shit the bed. They piss down their leg. And
they did that on purpose, Greg, just for you.
I know.
That was an FU to the fam. That was an FU to Greg.
It was.
And when
what happens?
When
we can't do this.
So I watched the Minnesota game. I think I talked about this. I was in Minnesota. I was in Nebraska. I was in the in Scottsbluff, Gearing area, watching that with my buddy, friend of the show, Josh. And when it was 4th and inches at the goal line, and I said under center, and I'm yelling, and it did no good. And so when it was 4th and inches or 4th and a yard, or where they went under center and they failed, he sent me a message. He's like, "That's why they don't go under center. Fuck you." But I made the point to him after, and I'm not trying to backtrack, but regarding Adrian Martinez, I said to Josh after the game, I said, Martinez doesn't suck. He just is really bad when we need him to be really good. Like in potential game-winning drives. And we've talked about it. We can. I'll get right to you, John. But we like the kid, and we know that he's a hard worker. But there's something, as much as I like his attitude, I like his drive, and I like the fact that while he probably doesn't appreciate being thrown under the bus, each week or whatever it is, he handles it with a certain amount of dignity, and he, I feel like, is sometimes more accountable than his head coach, in certain regards. But, he's got 3 games left, in my opinion. And this is assuming he starts in and plays in all. He has 3 games left at Nebraska. Go ahead, John.
You mentioned you were mentioning that one score game thing earlier. Remember the guys we had on those teams? We had guys that just wouldn't lose. We had Rex Burkhead, right? Mm-hmm. That guy was just a grinder. He was just a guy that played like sandlot football
Amir Abdullah.
What do they call it now? Kill the carrier. That we can't call it what we called it anymore.
Politically correct, please, Mr.
Yes.
Whoa.
I mean, he played football like that, and he was wonderful to watch. Amir Abdullah was another guy that just was like a guy that I'm not going to lose. People remember the Hail Mary play against Northwestern, but they don't remember the play before that. And the play before that was, I think, a 4th down and like 12 or something. And Amir Abdullah picked that up on his own.
Right.
And we do not have a player that does that now. We don't have an offensive player that says, oh, we need a score. I'm going to go get it. Because the only guy you put in charge of this entire fucking offense is obviously not capable of doing it, but you keep trotting him out there every week.
I want to, since you mentioned it, Amir Abdullah in that play leading up to the Hail Mary, that gets forgotten because it was not, it certainly was a very important part of the game-winning drive, etc. But everybody remembers the run against McNeese State because that was the game-winning run,
Right.
But you're right. I feel like there's a young guy in the running back room who's going to be that guy. Maybe it's a Jacques Yant, maybe it's a Gabe Irvin. I feel like there's a young guy who's going to, put the team on his back. And I feel like Martinez wants to be that guy. It's just not working out. And there, for all the beautiful, runs that he's had that have extended a series, a possession, or even for a score, he's got the bad decisions. And then he has, leaving the wide receivers, the wide open wide receivers, leaving them hanging out to dry. My thing, if you were to ask me, or somebody were to ask me who I feel the worst for, it's for this defense, because we've hardly talked about them, because all they do week in and week out really is their job. They're not getting blown out. I'm gonna knock on wood because we have Ohio State coming in, and I feel like this is going to be a situation where the offense is not going to be on the field too often. The time of possession is going to be heavily favored, in Ohio State's favor. And I think the defense is going to get winded about midway through the third quarter. So I think this one might actually get out of hand for that reason. But that's a group that is playing their nuts off. And because of the special teams blunders, because of the offensive output, they have very little to show for. So I feel bad for the guys on the defensive side of the ball.
Todd.
Well, I agree with that. I was frustrated with the defense a little bit in the Purdue game because of, just the that soft zone that they continue to play. It was frustrating to watch. It seemed like Purdue, especially in the second half when they got the ball, just could not stop them. They did not allow David Bell, to have that big play. But, number 0 and number 8, they got quite a few passes on that day. But I agree with you, Greg.
When did people start leaving the stadium?
There were a lot of people. I mean, I've never seen so many people leave as early. And it was after that first Nebraska drive in the fourth quarter, 2 minutes in, 2 or 3 minutes into the fourth quarter. People were leaving in droves, including yours truly. And part of that is that anymore where we sit, it's pretty damn difficult for my dad to get up and down in there. And so we do like to leave before the crowd is just absolutely, everybody's leaving. But when we were down below in the concourse, and especially when we were outside the stadium, the bridge on the west side of the stadium that goes north was packed with Nebraska fans walking across that bridge. So there were a hell of a lot of people that got out of that stadium before we did. And I have never seen that kind of exodus that early in the game. Never.
I think something, honest to God, my observation from sitting on my ass on my couch and watching this on TV, was that Nebraska broke in the third quarter. They just broke. Something broke and it's not going to get repaired. It literally, you talked about the defense not being able to stop Purdue. Well, I'll give you this. The defense has been playing their ass off all year, and they've watched an offense be led by the same guy over and over and over, who throws the ball away, gives the game away. And I think, honest to God, in the fourth quarter, that defense just said, I can't do this anymore. I'm not going to do this anymore. Not all of them. JoJo Doman's going to play until he's bloody all over the field. But you got to have 11 guys going in the same direction, a la row the boat sloganeering. And I don't think we're going to see that again. I think honestly, Ohio State is just going to beat the fucking living shit out of us, because I don't see a team that wants to be there anymore. And I hope that that's wrong. But how many times are you going to do the same fucking thing and then blame the players for it? How many times are you going to blame the same guy?
Let's talk about this.
Adrian Martinez, the scapegoat for Scott Frost.
Let's talk about this culture a little bit. The culture that has turned the corner, the culture that has been so important to build with this team. And it's interesting that apparently this culture includes the head coach not even addressing the team at the end of the ball game. He couldn't even give a perfunctory, you know what, fellas, this one got away from us. You know what, fellas, appreciate the effort. You know what, fellas, there's another day, another game. He couldn't even bring himself to do that. And he wants to talk about culture. Bullshit.
Yeah. I was told this week that, okay, I wasn't told. Let me rephrase this. I was led to believe that he was learning these coaching tactics from Tom Osborne, and that's what Tom Osborne would have done. And I kind of looked at that comment and I thought, Tom Osborne had a unity council that was full of people that had been there for years and years, and a winning team that was there for years and years. And he had a system to doing things as a coach that was around for years and years. And Scott Frost has none of that shit. So I looked at that too. And I thought, okay, well, I guess, so much for leadership.
I want to talk about, it's been much ballyhooed, for years is the various learning trees that Frost has sat under. Osborne, Kelly, Belichick,
Joe Walsh.
Tomlin.
Joe Walsh.
Walsh.
Joe Walsh. Joe Walsh played for the Eagles.
Life's been good to me so far.
Right. Sorry.
Bill Parcells. That was the other one, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, all these tremendous coaches. I feel like at some point, you're supposed to take a little bit, what works from every camp and incorporate that into, what you're doing. You can't just and look, I know it's Nebraska and Tom Osborne's a saint, and I'm not disputing that, and I'm not arguing that, and I'm not trying to sway anybody's minds against that. But the Tom Osborne way of coaching, the Tom Osborne style of play, doesn't necessarily work in 2021.
Guys, how many of those coaches that everybody, talks about having this influence, all of this coaching influence that Scott Frost has learned from, under how many of those coaches was Scott Frost a coach? It's not. When
Chip
Scott
Kelly.
Frost was under those people, he was a player.
Right.
He's learning to play. Learning to play is a hell of a lot different than learning to coach.
Yeah.
I don't know
all the
how
players
many
would be
former
coaches.
players I've heard who are young coaches that say, man, I played football in Nebraska, but I had no idea that there was this much to coaching.
Yeah.
He coached under Chip Kelly.
Yeah.
Who's going to get fired from UCLA?
He is probably.
Well,
Maybe we could
that's
swap.
overblown.
Maybe we could swap.
I can't imagine that ending well for anybody. I'll be
No.
honest with you.
You guys didn't go for that, huh?
Yeah. So we've talked about culture and we teed it up at the beginning of the show, or at least earlier in the show. I want to talk about the sellout streak, and I'm bringing it up again because if you haven't listened to Corn Nation Radio, an episode that dropped Thursday of this week, aka yesterday, our very own Patrick Gerhardt sat down with a Husker fan, friend of mine, an executive producer of 1011 News, and internet darling Brett Baker. You can follow him on Twitter at Brett S. Baker for Husker thoughts and other shenanigans. But they were talking about the sellout streak, and Brett made a good point that I hadn't thought about. I've always been kind of a defender of the sellout streak. I've never really shied away from that. Hey, if we're going to have something, we're not winning games. We should at least win something somewhere, right? And the fact that this thing's been going on for 50 years, so it's cool. We hang our hat on the sellout streak. But Brett made a real good point that I hadn't thought about before. And I'm not saying Brett's the first person to think about this, and I'm not saying it hasn't come up in other circles. But when we talk about dollars and cents, and Todd, when you mentioned the exodus, the mass exodus of people leaving the Purdue game as early as they did, we have a fan base that is loyal to a fault. You're guilty of it. I'm guilty of it. We'll show up. We'll watch the Huskers because we hope for the best every week. We end up drinking too much, crying too much, getting pissed off, etc. Maybe we make a video and it gets 25-something thousand views, whatever. But we do it because we go into every Saturday with belief that something's going to go right. We sell out Memorial Stadium, and even if it's not a true organic sellout, if it's a corporation buying up a bunch of tickets, or if it's the program they rolled out at the beginning of this year that the name escapes me, but it was a nice touch. How else were you going to get anybody to go to the Fordham game? But until the university starts feeling that pinch in the pocketbook from there being 25,000 unsold tickets to Memorial Stadium every year, they probably think that there's still a little meat on the bone, that there's still a little bit of time. They don't have to rush into any decisions. Now, certainly they have the financial backing of the deal with the Big Ten Network, and that is a very lucrative deal, and it's probably why Nebraska's in the Big Ten, if I'm being honest. But until it kind of dawned on me in listening to this conversation between Patrick and Brett that our loyalty to the program, which, while it's a good thing, is also sometimes, I think, perhaps detrimental, because it's not going to force the issue to the athletic administration because we're still giving them our hard-earned dollars. And I get it. If you have had season tickets for 60 years and 3 generations, you don't just want to take your name off that list because you ain't never going to get them back. So I get it, but I've come to the point now that I'm fine with the sellout streak ending. I don't care about the sellout. And we got 2 more home games, and they're going to be big ones. So they're going to be sold out: Ohio State and Iowa, and then on the road at Camp Randall. John, I'm pretty sure you've got your media credentials by now for that. But if the sellout streak ends, I'm fine with it, because at some point, money talks and bullshit walks, right? So a statement has to be made that Nebraska fans are going to start doing something else with their Saturday afternoons if this is, the product that we're going to get on the field. If we have to, figuratively, I'm not advocating for any felony crimes here, but if we have to figuratively burn it to the ground, I'm fine. I'm not apathetic, because apathy is the worst thing that can happen. But I'm fed up I'd say I'm almost the opposite. I'm fed up to the point that, I want to see some wholesale change because, like everybody else, I've taken time away, from being productive. I could be spending the 3.5 hours mowing the yard, painting a deck, cleaning the house, doing something useful rather than sitting on the couch, getting angry and angrier as the day goes on. Instead, I'm sitting on the couch getting angrier and angrier as the day goes on. So that's my rant about the sellout streak. I think in past conversations, guys, both of you are fine with it going away. Like, you don't see the purpose of it anymore.
The sellout streak has been propped up. It's phony.
It's artificial. I get that.
It's artificial. And
how many years? If you had to guess, Todd, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but how many years do you think it's been artificial? 15?
Oh, no, I would say within the last 15 years, there have been years where you would have to say it's been legit, but it's happened more than once. Hell, it happened back, in the Solich days. It kind of goes in waves, but they are, when you got a 2-for-1 ticket sale for Purdue, when you have to, and God, I'm going to sound like just an absolute asshole when I say this, but when you have to give away tickets to underprivileged kids, sell them to wealthy boosters who will get a tax write-off because they're donating tickets to kids who would never see a Nebraska game otherwise. It is propped up. Yeah. So let's get over it. Let's get that number. Whatever that number is, carve it in granite, carve it in the stadium somewhere so that people can forever remember that Nebraska had 300 and 84, 85 sellouts and whatever.
The problem is
artificial.
Wait a minute.
Oh,
God
sorry,
damn it.
John.
You guys in this fucking, it's not an organic sellout. They sell the tickets. Okay.
I get that.
It's a sellout.
I get
it is
that,
a sellout,
John.
and it's not about that. It's about putting butts in the seats and having money come into the athletic department. That's what it's about. Not necessarily a streak. That's the marketing aspect of it. But it's still the fact that Nebraskans go to the football games and they spend money downtown. They spend money in the Haymarket area, and they buy beer and they buy T-shirts and they buy, I don't know, whatever the fuck else. Yeah. Balloons, that one can go away.
Kill birds.
Yeah, exactly. But they spend money on Nebraska football. And if this continues, they're not going to spend money on Nebraska football. And that includes our media. You know what I mean? You've already seen the Omaha and Lincoln newspapers merge their media departments. And I know a lot of people go, oh, the fucking the press, it is all biased anyway. But, we need those people, just like we need the bartenders down the Haymarket. So
get more knowledge from the bartender.
That's
John.
the decision point for Trev Alberts. He can decide, but in the next 3 games, he has to make the choice at the end of this fucking season. Is he going to save a coach or is he going to save a program? And if he chooses, I'm going to save my buddy Scott, then he can possibly shit the rest of this down the toilet. Because he's going to go through a whole offseason if there are no changes where people are going to go like, fuck this. I don't care about this anymore.
Well,
which will be a really big shame.
I say I agree with you, but I also think that, because we do it here at Coronation. We've been guilty of it on the 5 Heart podcast for, 5 or whatever years. And in all Husker podcasts before that is, when August starts rolling around, we get awfully excited again. And we start looking at that schedule like, oh, I think this is a bowl eligible team, or I think this is an 8, 9, 10 win team, or hell, if things go right, we might be playing in Indianapolis. We do that every year. So
no.
Let's
no.
Let's, what do you mean? No,
no, that won't happen this year. If there are no if we go 3-9 and there are no changes and no changes to staff, no changes whatsoever, people will spend this offseason figuring out other shit they will do besides watching and paying attention to Husker football.
I agree with you. I
can almost guarantee that because this last offseason was terrible.
It was brutal. It really was.
It was just terrible. And, for people listening, we have to come up with content. That's our job. And I've already thought, if we have to go through another offseason like this last one, we're going to become, I don't know, a historical site. We're going to do something. We're going to write fiction. I don't fucking care. But I'm not going to come up with football content, just to shit football content out my ass for a program I may not give a shit about. So that's the problem, is by the time fall rolls around, everybody goes, I'm getting excited. You know what I might get excited about? I might get excited about fucking Gopher football. How about that? Huh? How about all them expatriates all over the nation that go to all the gatherings and shit? The Californians for Nebraska and the Ohio State people for Nebraska. Wait, maybe they'll just decide, fuck it, I think I'll watch the Rams this week. I think the NFL, looks pretty good.
John.
That's what's going to happen. And that's what Trev Alberts faces as a decision. Unless Scott Frost can pull his head out of his ass in the next 3 games, get rid of his play sheet, figure out why his offense has 42 red zone opportunities this year, the most in the Big Ten. What, their offense is number 16 in the nation, but they are 98th in red zone conversions because his fucking dick goes soft when he hits the red zone? Because he can't put Austin Allen in the game and throw him a pass?
Jaquez Yant.
Yeah, he gets to the red zone and he just falls on his face. And because of fear of execution, what's the failure to launch?
Or think about this, because we've seen it a couple times now. It's the 5 minutes left in the game drive. Because I think we saw it against Minnesota. I think we saw it against Purdue. Well, I know we saw it against Purdue. You're down by 2 scores, but we're going to play some of our best football in that last drive or, second to last drive to get down by 1 score so that we can keep this stat growing, because we haven't had a loss this season that was, more than 1 score. So we gotta keep it close, even if it's an L. At least it's close.
Against soft prevent defenses.
Yeah.
Well, get off my ass, Todd. Damn it.
I don't like being there, Greg. Doggone, yeah.
Who was it we went to overtime with and we didn't even try in the last 30 seconds?
Michigan State.
Was that Michigan State?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's, oh my God, we might throw a long ball and it might get intercepted. It literally is as if Adrian Martinez is going to coach so much to not throw interceptions that he can't hit open receivers because he's afraid to throw the ball. And then when we get into crunch time, it's like, oh shit, now I have to throw the ball. And then we suddenly actually complete some passes. Remember Omar Manning's jump in the Oklahoma end zone? Haven't seen that fucking play since, have we? But this coaching staff is, I'm ready for the next 3 games. I will say one thing about Nebraska football that I think a lot of people would agree with, but not say out loud. And something I probably would have never thought before. I'm ready for this fucking season to be over. I really am.
Don't get that salty, John. We're going to win the next 3. We're
I am.
Go
just let's see what happens, motherfuckers. It's kind of like watching the show. I'll binge watch it all at once and then go, okay, that was neat. It's basketball season. That looks promising.
It's funny. You mentioned the reference to Michigan State game, and that was the game that we held their, All-American candidate running back in check, till the very end. Or, I don't think he had a huge run against us. But then, the offense sputtered. That I think is the most frustrating, is that if this team, if we took the defense against Michigan State and the offense against Northwestern and the special teams against the bye week, and we put them together, we have a really good football team. But we can't get all facets, all parts to, coexist and play well on the same week. That's why it's happening in these next 3 games when we finish 6-6, knocking off some ranked teams and then go bowling, and then hope springs eternal. We're going to have an offseason of love and fun in the great Cornhusker State.
I'm for it. Let's do it.
I'm driving all the way to Illinois on Saturday so I can be with you, Greg, so that can rub off on me, because I need that.
Bring it on. John, real quick before we get to predictions, because we've gone long enough.
I had one more thing.
Okay, I wasn't done, but continue, please.
Okay, go ahead.
No, you first. I was going to move on to Ohio State. What do you have?
I forgot what it was.
Okay, perfect.
Wait, Son of a bitch. Oh, yeah, I know. One more thing that's fucking pissing me off this week. These people you see, if we fire Scott Frost, it'll take us 4 years to rebuild. And I can go through a 4-year rebuild. It doesn't. You have fucking Mel Tucker, the giant-headed Mel Tucker. He has a giant head, doesn't he? Or is it just me saying that? Maybe not. Okay, Mel Tucker has Michigan State in his second fucking season in the top 10 and in the college playoff rankings. Second season. So it's going to take 4 years to rebuild it. Not with a coach that acts like a fucking coach.
Mel Tucker's going to be the next coach at LSU. I'm calling it now.
I think you might be right.
LSU. I wouldn't go to LSU. I wouldn't. I'd look at that and I go.
That's because purple's not a good color on you, John.
Yeah, well, those people, I would go there to visit. I would love to see a night game in Tiger Stadium, and I would moon everybody with everybody else. But I wouldn't coach there. Jesus, those people are insane. They are insane.
I want to follow up something.
They expect alcoholism. Okay, go ahead.
I want to follow up something you just said about the online complaints of if you fire Scott Frost, it's going to take 4 years. I think if Scott Frost left after the Iowa game, by his own choice or somebody else's, I feel like the cupboards are a little more full now than they were when Riley was here.
Absolutely.
I feel like the next person that's coming in doesn't have to do like a frame up rebuild, restoration. It's you're gonna have to fix some dents and maybe put a painted coat on it. But I feel if that's the direction that the football program goes, all I can say is maybe there's a way they keep Eric Chenander, because whatever he's doing on the defensive side of the ball, it seems to be working, and that'd be a tough sell, because I know he and Scott are buddies. So anyway, Ohio State comes to town this Saturday night. John, in your Monday Night Live recording, or live video, you had Ramsey Nasrallah. I hope I'm saying that right. From, is it 11 Warriors?
Yep.
Cool. I'm 2 for 2. But he's an Ohio State fan. What insight did he give? Because let's face it, I didn't watch or listen. But what insight?
I don't know. I don't know why people would listen to me for an hour, but I guess they do.
And they comment, and they're very interactive.
Sometimes I get sick of myself talking. Anyway, I pointed out that Ohio State is very young, and they are very young. And their secondary is very young and inexperienced. Their quarterback has figured it out. I mean, these freshman quarterback. They have a freshman. What's the running back's name? Hedgerton. God dang it, I'm missing it.
Henderson.
That guy is phenomenal. But they're all freshmen, right? So this team next year is going to slaughter everything in their path. They're already doing that now, but this Ohio State team next year that we don't get to play unless we win the Big Ten West, they will kill everything next year. This year, maybe they could be weak in the secondary. If we actually went out and were aggressive and threw the ball down the field. I don't know. Maybe aliens could take control of Scott Frost's brain and say, "Hey, here's what's gonna work this week, you motherfucker. Throw the ball to your really tall tight end that's going to play in the NFL. Maybe you should do that. Maybe you should have more than 2 fucking TD receptions on the season, you stupid shit ass fuck."
First of all, I'm glad we finally got to red ass John Johnston. And secondly, I love the fact that in your alien scenario, they understand our game of American football and also our foul language. So if that's the case, I'm ready. I'm ready for
They've been observing us for years.
And especially if it's mostly on game day, they're going to get it all at the same time.
Do you know why I've been wearing these do-rag things?
To keep the aliens out of your head, out of your thoughts?
To hide the tinfoil.
All right. Well, let's get to our predictions. I don't have anything else to say. I'm very interested. It's a big noon kickoff Saturday on Fox, which I'm going to pay attention because when they say big noon kickoff, they mean noon Eastern. Because I think the last time the Huskers were on big noon kickoff, I was like, yeah, God's time zone is the central time zone. Why would it be early? And I tuned in at 11:30 and missed the first almost quarter. Now, if that was the Northwestern game, and I don't think it was, then I'd happily miss the first quarter to watch us beat the crap out of Ohio State. If the good Lord told me in a dream, hey, Greg, if you don't watch this game, Nebraska's going to win. They're going to win straight up. They're going to win by 2 scores. I'll sit this one out. So, God.
You have to go to bed for that dream to happen there. Okay.
Well, I got to record. I got to edit and produce and upload and everything, all these podcasts and videos you make me do. So someday I'll get there, John. Someday. Anyway, let's get to our predictions. Todd, I'm going to start with you. Nebraska, Ohio State, 11 a.m. Central on Fox, part of the big noon kickoff. Tell me what you think.
Wait. I can guess Todd's prediction.
I'm going to go out on a limb, Greg. 35-21 Ohio State.
Oh.
Okay, well,
record, here's how
we picked Nebraska to beat Oklahoma, and Oklahoma was in the top 5, I think, at the time. So that makes me sad, Todd.
6 weeks ago, I may have picked it 35-21 Nebraska. But here and now, 35-21 Ohio State.
Here and now, that's a tangent. I can't get off the tangent. Okay, go on, John.
Well, I tell you what, they're going to have this possession, that possession. None of the fucking shit will matter. Here's what's going to happen in this game. Nebraska is going to go out. And if Nebraska starts well, they're going to feel buoyed. And it's going to be a game all the way into the third quarter, like 10 minutes left in the third quarter. And if we start out poorly, like we go 3 and out, it's going to just be an ass kicking from the beginning. And they're just going to watch this team get annihilated and everybody will leave by halftime, just like they did in 2007 against Oklahoma State. And it'll be like, 56-10, because Ryan Day will look at his offensive coaches and go, they did help bring back football last year. So I'm going with 56. I honestly think something broke at Purdue, and I think that right now this team is treading on a very, something flimsy that would break and send them into abyss, like in a Indiana Jones movie, except that it's not an Indiana Jones movie. It's just
why not just reference the movie titled The Abyss?
I couldn't. My brain went blank right there when I was looking for words.
We'll have less heart attacks.
Yeah.
What?
Work on that, John.
That's shocking. I've never heard of that before. I don't really have a lot of hope, and I'm the eternal hope guy, and I really don't. I think we're broken and we're done.
I'm the same. I feel, I don't think I've ever picked against Nebraska here. I say, they'll win by 1 or they'll win by 0.1 points, which is not even possible, but I always, I'm to the point now where realism has overtaken optimism, or even that, that hopeful exuberance that I usually have. I agree with you, John. If Nebraska comes out swinging and, they do some nice things, go back to last year's game against Ohio State when, Luke McCaffrey ran out and showed the Buckeyes some things they hadn't seen before. And, it was a game for a little while, not long, but a little while.
Until my daughter had to go walking down the aisle, and then Nebraska fell apart.
I'm surprised she's still married because of that, honestly. I would have thought that'd have been a deal breaker.
I know.
But
I know.
no, if Nebraska, can stand with them, I like our defense. And I know that Ohio State, they don't rebuild, they reload. And so they'll always have weapons, but I like our defense. I feel like the defense is playing maybe, a little bit, maybe not as well in the Purdue game, because you all wanted to correct me on that. But I feel like the defense has been the stalwart part of this football team this season. And I don't think that's going to change, come Saturday. But if the offense can utilize the weapons that they have, get the Omar Mannings, the Xavier Betts, the Samari Tourés, the Austin Allens, the Vokaleks, the Yants and the Morrisons and just the Martinez, they have, I've listed off weapons and I didn't even name them all. Okay, I'll give more credit where I have not in the past, utilizing the Levi Falks, but still not the Brody Belts. Fuck that guy. But
wow.
No, that utilizing the weapons, I could see this game being close. I could see Ohio State, eking out a thriller, like something like a 35, 28 or 42, 32 or something like that. But even at home, even, on a big stage, which is never a good place for Nebraska, in my opinion, because recent memory has shown that Nebraska on the big stage in a big time game doesn't perform well. I think that, as you mentioned, John, Ryan Day will look when it's 56-3 or whatever and take the foot off the gas pedal, say, thanks for bringing football back. That would have been last year. I think it's going to be more like in the movie Remember the Titans when Coach Yost shouts to Coach Boone on the sidelines, run it up, Herman, leave no doubt. And Ohio State's going to win like 87-4 or something ridiculous. It's going to be a bloodbath. And I apologize to all the Husker faithful who have now just thoroughly pissed off. But look deep within yourself. Is this a team that's going to go out there and compete with Ohio State?
Did you see Sam McCune's? Did any of you watch Sam McCune's video after the game?
No.
He was more animated than I even thought Sam McCune could get. And I thought he made a very good video with very good points. And a lot of people watched it. He didn't even swear, that fucker.
I bet you he's credentialed for the sidelines for the next road game.
I bet he is too. Well, he doesn't get to go to the sidelines. He's a press box guy.
Same difference.
No.
Well, okay, not same difference, but he's still credentialed.
Okay, we should move on now.
I mean, we did predictions, John. That's the end of the show.
It is, isn't it?
We've been doing this for 252 episodes now, and I felt like by now you would know that.
Okay.
All right, that is our show. This, 2 weeks in a row that we've been really depressed, and by extension, really depressing to you, the listeners/viewers. We apologize. But until Nebraska starts winning games, there's not a whole lot to be happy about, except for, and John mentioned it earlier, basketball season, volleyball season. I'll have to get Beth on, talk a little bit about volleyball. And
wrestling's coming soon.
And wrestling. And baseball in the spring. And women's bowling. There are a lot of good athletic programs. I didn't.
We're number one.
Are we?
Well, we were last year. We're still number one until somebody knocks us off.
Well, that's true. Good point.
What I'm saying is there are a lot of successful athletic programs at the University of Nebraska. Heck, even the club hockey team is doing well. So if it's not our beloved football team, we can still say go Big Red. Just, gave ourselves 3.5 extra hours on Saturdays. I don't know. It'll get better. And I say that because it can't get any worse from football perspective. So that'll do it for this episode of the 5-part podcast. I love the attitude of the dog in the background, John. The dog sums it up. Just ready for sleep. And the dog is ready for sleep. We all are.
She is snoring.
Let us have a good night's rest. Although if you're listening to this Friday morning, don't fall asleep at work. I've done it before, but I didn't have an important job, and you might. So for Todd Wolverton, for John Dam Johnston, I'm Greg Mahochko, reminding you this week and every week that 5 heart is all the heart you need. John?
Fuck everything. Go Big Red.
To salute the infamous wizard of the West Coast offense, Joe Walsh. My Maserati does 185. I lost my license, now I don't drive. I got a limo, I ride in the back. I lock the doors in case I'm attacked. Go Big Red.